guys, welcome back to Magic TV. My name's Craig. It's 9 o'clock. It's time for a Talk Magic, and I am super excited about the gentleman that I have here with me today. Everybody in the UK Magic community is going to know who this person is. If you're outside of the UK, you might not, but this is an interview you're absolutely going to want to listen to if you plan on being a successful magician. And the reason is this gentleman is, and I guarantee you this is true, he is one of the most successful magicians in the UK. He is incredibly busy. He's crushing it. He's out there performing, and he's so busy, he doesn't really have time to go to magic conventions. He doesn't really have time to go to a lot of places like that. So you might not have seen of him or heard of him before, but this is one of the top performers, one of the top marketers, and one of the most successful magicians in the UK. And I am so excited that he found the time in his incredibly busy schedule to jump on and do an interview. This is going to be amazing. I guarantee it. I am, of course, talking about the legend, Mr. Stephen Simmons. How you doing, Stephen? You okay?
I'm really well. What an intro. Thank you.
It's all true, though. Like, seriously, you're all over the place. Like, you are so, I know that, magicians sometimes don't like to blow their own trumpet, but you are very successful at what you do. And I'll give people a frame of reference. Just before we went and started filming this, off camera, we're having a conversation, and you were like, yeah, it's October right now. It's a little bit quiet. I'm only doing 4 gigs a week. And I'm thinking, a lot of magicians, if they were doing 4 gigs a week, it'd be the busiest they've ever been in their entire life. And you're just like, yeah, it's just ticking over. It'll get busier in November. That just kind of shows how busy you are. And I think it's because, and correct me if I'm wrong here, a lot of the most successful magicians that I've ever met, you don't see them posting on social media very often. You don't see them hanging out on the Magic Cafe. You don't see them at magic conventions or club meets or anything like that, because they're busy going out there, crushing their business, learning about marketing, implementing new business strategies, going out and performing, and just doing a great job of growing their business. And I think that's you to a T. I think that you're super focused on being the best that you can be. Am I right?
I certainly try to. I think my aim has always been to go out and just perform as much as possible. And that's always been the case since I really took on trying to perform. It's probably 8-9 years ago I started taking it seriously. And yeah, it's just always been perform as much as possible. And I think that's possibly from coming, oh, my cat is just getting my microphone there. It's probably came from sort of quite humble beginnings and just, going out as much as possible to perform and just get as many gigs under my belt, because that's how you get the experience. And my aim has always been to be the best magician I can. And I've always thought to do that, you have to be out performing. I love performing, and I love marketing, as you mentioned as well. I've got a real passion for just developing the business. I like the hustle, I like the grind, and I like being busy.
That's great. And I want to talk about all of that. I really do. But let's pick up on one point that you said right there, humble beginnings. Let's talk about how you got into magic. Let's talk about your origin story. Because love that. For people who don't know you, or that have never met you, or don't know who you are, let's talk about your origin story in magic. How old were you when you got into magic as a hobby?
So it was that old cliche of having a magic kit when I was a kid and, just sort of rolling with it up until probably the age of 15. I had a really big interest in it. I was going around school and doing magic tricks to my friends, to teachers. And, I used to make little promo videos, and I'd have the old gig here and there. And yeah, I just really quite enjoyed it up until probably the age of 15 or so. And then, it kind of stopped being cool. And I sort of fell into a lot of being sidetracked with lots of drug taking and alcohol, and just being a bit of a reprobate and not really had much of a vision or a focus or any particular goals. And I just fell into this sort of slump of being a tearaway, really, and just not really having much focus or drive. And that probably lasted for up until the age of 24. So we're looking at, around 8 years ago or so, maybe 23, so 9 years ago around. And I was at university, and again, I was just drinking and, not paying any attention. In fact, the only reason I went to university really was to get the loans, and just to sort of have another year of not really doing much. And that was just because I just had no, real goal. And of course, over this period of time, I'd fallen out of love with magic. And what sort of got me focused back on it again is it was during a night out, and a night out which involved heavy drinking. And I don't really remember how it happened, but I got hit in the face. My jaw got broken, quite a few places across here. And I had to go to hospital. So it was whilst I was in hospital, as hospitals often are, it was very busy. I wasn't able to get properly seen for 5 days. I think I was in hospital because they kept delaying the operation because they had more urgent cases coming in. And so, yeah, I was stuck in hospital for a long time. And it was at that sort of point, I was like, what am I doing? What is going on? How can I get myself refocused and, kind of get my life back on track, really, and have some kind of ambition. And there was a gentleman opposite me. He's an old guy, he's a cancer patient, and he must have been in his 80s, and he was shuffling a deck of cards in the hospital bed opposite me. And me with my broken jaw, not really being able to speak, but I was kind of like mumbling, oh, I know a couple of card tricks. And we built up a really good friendship over the next sort of probably only 24 hours that we were in there, but I was doing some card tricks. And even though he was a cancer patient, he was a terminal cancer patient, he, you could just see it in his face that all of this, all of the worries whilst I was performing these magic tricks just completely left him. He was laughing, he was smiling, we were having a good conversation. And it was that sort of moment that kind of triggered to me that this is something that I want to do. Maybe I could go back to magic again that I started doing as a kid, and maybe I could just make people happy and have fun and help people with, a form of escapism. And maybe that's what my calling should be. And it was pretty much from then that I thought, right, I'm going to get back into magic and, start to take it seriously. So it was from that moment that I went out, I started hustling around Portsmouth, which is where I was working. And I was just doing it for beers at the time, and to build up connections and just to build my act up a little bit. But I would be out, pretty much from that moment, I'd be out 5 nights a week to bars, restaurants, nightclubs, pubs, and just performing magic just wherever I went. And it would just start to home these card tricks together, home the coin tricks, and start to build up a little bit of a business. And very quickly I fell back in love with magic again, and I started to remember the reasons why I enjoyed it when I was younger. And it just started to snowball from that. And then it turned into residencies at some of these pubs I was working at and the restaurants I was working at. I started to work in a lot of nightclubs. So I spent probably 3 years as the resident magician in pretty much every nightclub in Southampton. And then it turned into weddings and corporates, and and that's pretty much the story, really. And now here I am now, sort of trying to work as much as I can.
That's amazing. So I've got a few questions. So the first question is, when you got back into magic and you started performing again, did you instantly know that was going to be a thing that you wanted to do as a full-time career? Was it kind of very early on that you had that realization?
Yeah, I mean, it was, sorry, my cat's attacking them.
Okay.
It was, pretty much straight from that moment. Within 2 weeks of going out and performing these magic tricks, I just remembered how much I loved it, and I thought, this is what I'm going to do. And as I mentioned before that, it was alcohol, drugs. There was very little direction in my life, and I knew straight away that this was going to be my calling. I didn't want to go working for anyone else. That's not the kind of person that I am. I've got a massive problem with authority in sort of the workplace. So yeah, I knew pretty quickly that this is what I was going to do. And people were reacting well to what I was doing. And it took a while to snowball. I could have got a job, but I decided to spend all of my time reading and rehearsing and practicing and not getting a job. And that led me to being, homeless for a certain period of time, just because I would rather have been homeless, but knowing that I was going to be doing magic at some point. And it kind of forces me into committing to making it work. I think that's sort of what happened at the time. I didn't have any other to make it work.
That's really interesting, because the question I get on this channel all the time is from amateurs or hobbyists or semi-pros or people that do the odd gig or two here, and they message me or they leave a comment on the YouTube channel, and they say, I'm desperately wanting to become a full-time magician. when should I give up my job? When should I, and I've spoken to lots of people about this, and the general rule of advice that I tend to hear from a lot of people is save up for a couple of years, make sure that you've got as much income from your gigs as you have from your day job, have a year's worth of savings in case everything goes wrong, and then but you're just like, fuck it, go homeless. Don't, you know, all or nothing. Force yourself to be successful because you don't have another choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. And you know, during that period, you know, I was a reprobate anyway. I had no money. You know, I was floating around between jobs, and you know, I was no way I was going to have any savings or anything like that at that point in my life. And I just had to throw myself into it. I think having money saved up if you've got a job is probably great advice. And probably something, because to be honest, being homeless is a pain in the ass, and it's not the easiest way to build a career in magic. But for me, and the situation that I was in and the circumstances that I was in, it was the only thing I could do. And you know, you had to make it work. And all of my time was just spent learning how to build a business, how to perform magic, and but it's great.
That's awesome. So you mentioned your love of marketing, and you love marketing. And I genuinely believe in order to be a successful close-up magician, you have to learn about modern marketing techniques. The days of actually putting an advert in the yellow pages are far gone. Did you, I suppose I've got two questions. One, was it marketing that you studied in uni? Was that a passion before you decided to become a magician? Or did you realize that if you wanted to be a successful magician, you needed to understand about marketing, and that's when you embraced it and started to love it? At what point did that kind of understanding of marketing happen?
I think I've always been a bit of a hustler, pretty much my entire life. And then it just, you know, once I started to go with the magic, you know, straight away, you know, even the simple things, well, I was like, right, you need the business card, you need the Facebook, you need the website, you need all the basic bits in place. And then I started to learn more about using marketing in a business. So, you know, there's loads of great courses out there and books. But yeah, I mean, really, you know, to answer your question, the real passion for marketing kind of came with the repassioning of magic as well. So they kind of came together. The more bookings I got, the more I would invest in marketing, and they both sort of snowballed at the same time. So the interest in marketing and the re-interest in magic both came about together, really, and just sort of grew together as well.
Okay. And when do you know that when do you know is the right time to transition from one aspect of your business to something else? And what I mean by that is, you mentioned there that you did a lot of nightclubs. And I remember, and we'll talk about this, I remember you literally wrote the book on getting gigs in nightclubs. But now you focus on quite high-end corporate gigs.
Yeah.
You're seen in a nightclub now, not that you don't love performing in nightclubs, but it probably doesn't pay the same sort of fee.
Yeah.
It's you know, when did you kind of, because I suppose the point I'm getting at is that a lot of magicians are scared. I know a lot of magicians that have got 2 or 3 residencies, and they don't want to go and because in order to be successful doing something else, whether that be corporates or weddings, you kind of have to take a step back, because you can be so busy doing nightclubs every single night of the week that you've got no time to take that corporate booking. But then you're always going to be stuck at that level, and you're never going to go up to the next level. As somebody who's actually been there, what was your thought process going from here to here? How did you make that leap and worry, oh my God, I'm giving up all of my income to go and do this, which might not work out? Like, you know, that's a big risk to take, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, with that comes completely rebranding everything as well. You know, the website gets rebranded, the cards get rebranded, your persona gets rebranded. You can't go and do nightclub style magic at a corporate event. And I guess, well, one of the things with nightclub work especially is that it's very late. So a lot of the time I would have a gig, it would start at 11 o'clock at night until 1 o'clock. And then I would start my second nightclub, 1:15. They were literally opposite each other, 1:15 to 3:15 in the morning. So that left me space to be able to take on weddings, corporate events during the day on a Friday and Saturday. So I was still fortunately able to slowly leave the the nightclub branding behind, and I stopped getting the photos and the videos. They slowly started to not be posted onto social media, and they were slowly replaced with the corporate stuff and the wedding stuff. But I mean, really, once I started, once I got the bug of the wedding and the corporate market, it didn't take me too long to transition out of nightclubs. Probably 6 months, and I was like, that's it, I'm done with nightclubs now. And the other thing is, I was getting a bit older as well. I think there is, when I was 24, nightclubs was a great place to work, and people were of a similar age. And once I started pushing 30, it was, nah, it's not quite cool for a 30-year-old me anyway to be waltzing around in nightclubs. But yeah, so the transition was quite quick, and it just came from picking up these extra bookings and then using as much marketing from those bookings. So, all of the assets I could possibly get, testimonials, videos, photos, using those to start to rebrand and aiming towards a wedding market. I think when I first began to think about the wedding market, and that was just from starting to get more involved in the magic community and seeing that this is a good way to make an income, was through weddings and corporate events. So I started to do charity events for free, but high-end charity events, places in Hilton hotels, big decent venues. And I'd say, look, can I come and do your charity event for free? I know it's a good venue, but I want to bring a cameraman, I want to bring a videographer, and I want a 5-star review at the end of it. And you only have to do 4 or 5 of those, and then you're a corporate magician. Suddenly you've got the videos that show that you're a corporate magician. You've got these video testimonials from the booker, and you've got good photos, and you can take all of that and start to build a brand new brand, a brand new website. And that's pretty much how I started to transition. I used to do a lot of gate crashing as well. So I used to just turn up at hotels if there was an event going on, and just do some magic, make some contacts, just give my phone to someone and just say, look, film this. If the organizer sussed it, I'd make a quick exit. But yeah, I was a massive hustler.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? Hustling. You got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that you say about going out and doing free gigs, because whenever this subject comes up on Facebook, you've got an army of people that go, no, you should never do free gigs because you should value your own time. I did a ton of free gigs, and I still would now if I needed to.
Yeah.
Like if I needed to put a show reel together for something, I have no problem. And especially if you're new into magic, I think that you mentioned it before, you wanted as much performance time as possible. I think the most important thing when you're first starting is flight time.
Yeah.
Is going out there, doing it again and again and again, and not down the pub to your mates, not in your living room to your family, but going out into a gigging situation. That's the only way that you're going to get better. And I've met magicians that are like, they've been in magic for 6 months. They know about 10 tricks. And they're like, yeah, I don't go out for less than 500 quid. I'm like, how many gigs do you get? None. Well, okay. And they're terrible. And it's like, you've got to be somewhere to be, you've got to go somewhere to be bad. You're only going to get good by being bad, right?
Yeah. And I think this is, it leads me to something I think I might have learned from one of your videos, maybe 7-8 years ago. But it was, at every gig, you have to think about ACE, assets, cash, and experience. And if you go out and you get one of those 3 things, then you're in a better position after the gig than you were before you started it. So, assets, things like photos, videos, testimonials, all of those are gold dust if you're trying to build up a business. They're worth more than money itself. If you've got thousands of photos on your website, you're going to be booked over someone who's got 2. If you've got hundreds of testimonials, 5-star reviews, you're going to be booked over someone who hasn't, if someone is, doing a straight up comparison. And the same with videos as well. So I would, certainly go out for free if it meant that I got those assets, photos, videos, testimonials. And the second one was the cash. So if you go out and get cash, excellent, that's great. But if I wasn't doing anything on a Friday night when I was just starting out, I'd go out for 50 quid, I'd go out for 100 quid, because I would then also get the assets. And then the E was the experience. So like you said, that flight time, I always wanted to build up to get that 10,000 hour flight time. I don't know where that's come from, but if you get 10,000 hours, they say that that's when you're really at the top of your game.
Absolutely, they do. Absolutely. And I couldn't agree more with that, 100%. Also, let's talk very briefly about nightclubs, because a lot of magicians, when they're giving advice on how to get into magic, they talk about restaurants and they talk about kids' parties and they talk about this and that and the other and so care homes and so on and so forth. Hardly anybody talks about nightclubs, but you literally wrote the book on this. I remember several years ago, you bringing out a book, which was incredible. I remember reading it. I was too old to take any of the information on because if at 30 you were too old to run nightclubs, I was like geriatric. But I remember reading it and thinking, for anybody new getting into magic or for anybody young, this book is gold dust, like pure gold dust. Like, I suppose, A, why did you write the book when that was an income stream, or did you write it after you transitioned? And B, what was the desire to write it? Because you've said before, you've got no desire to really be in the magic community, as far as I'm aware, and we can talk about that. But then you're writing this book, which is specifically for magicians.
Yeah, so the book was wrote pretty much as I was on the way out. And it was almost a way of me just summarizing my experiences for the last 4 years. The nightclubs I was doing, I was doing 4 or 5 a week residencies, 5 at its peak, but 4 or 5 residencies a week. And on top of that, pretty much every nightclub in Southampton would have me for their special occasions. So whether that's, the nightclub's birthday or, Halloween and things like that, they're all big things that I might get hired, once every 3 months or 4 months. And so between them all, I was probably working 6 nightclubs a week at its peak. 2 on a Friday, 2 on a Saturday, Thursday and a Wednesday. And but so the book was wrote as I was sort of transitioning out from that. And the main reason was I had come from the grassroots of learning all of this stuff. And I just felt that it was information that is probably not wrote down because it's very an abstract way of approaching, and it's got the hustling side of things. And I just thought it'd be useful for anyone who was in my position, who wanted to start to build a career in magic. And I could feel myself transitioning quite quickly into magic being a very good source of income with the corporate stuff. And I just thought if there's a way of helping other people kind of transition, if they get some good knowledge from the nightclub stuff, then that's pretty much why I wrote it. I thought it might just help people.
And is it still available for anybody who's listening to this that oh my God, I missed out on this? Is it, can you get it?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you message me, so at the moment, it's just a £10 donation to the Southampton Children's Hospital. So if you want it, you can do a £10 donation to the Southampton Children's Hospital and I will send it to you. So just send me a screenshot of the donation and I'll send it across to you. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's great. That's fantastic. So have you, obviously you released this book to the magic community. You see a lot of magicians that are very, very successful, like reaching out to the magic community with courses and, hey, this is how to become successful at this, or this is how to become successful at this. And they start releasing products and so on and so forth. Is that anything that you've ever had a desire to do? Or is that something that is on your agenda or something you want to do? Or are you kind of firmly entrenched in the performing side of things?
Yeah, it's certainly not anything that I have any plans to do at the moment. I think when I wrote one of my other books, Choosing to Change, which is much more about my history that we've spoken about and kind of how you can build motivation and transition into magic, and that was wrote a couple of years after the nightclub stuff. I don't know. I've never really had a particular passion for doing courses. It was definitely something that crossed my mind at that time. But now, absolutely not. No, I haven't got time for that at all. Possibly something down the line. But I also think there's nothing that I could do in terms of courses that someone else isn't doing really well. Especially like I know you've got NETRIX, which kind of has really great stuff for people who are looking to become magicians. Paul Martin has got a really great course on wedding MC. So there's some really great stuff out there. And I'd rather absorb all of that knowledge for myself and just kind of keep progressing in my own direction for now.
No, that's totally makes sense. So correct me if I'm wrong, but you also work on stage quite a lot, don't you?
I do, yes. I do quite a bit of stage stuff, corporate events. I do the occasional holiday park, and that's kind of my more recent transition, is going from the close up to the stage stuff. And it's still something I'd rather have more stage stuff than I've got at the moment. And the transition's always difficult because you get opportunities for stage work and you're booked in doing a close-up gig because my 2023 is pretty much booked solid already. So it's a slower transition into the stage stuff that I want to do. But I do quite a lot. Yeah, probably, it's something that I add on to my close-up packages to do quite a lot of stage stuff. So if someone books me for a corporate event and I'm doing close-up, I'll normally say, well, look, get this add-on and I'll do a stage show for everyone at the end, 20-minute show. So a lot of my corporate kind of has the stage element to it as well. But yeah, I'd certainly like to be doing more just stage stuff and less corporate and less close up.
So what advice can you give to somebody who's transitioning from close up to stage? Because that's something that you're in the middle of doing right now. And that's another question I get on this channel a lot. How do you move from close up magic to stage magic? Because I've said this on the channel before, I genuinely believe that learning how to perform on stage makes you a better close up magician.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been doing stage work for, the last 5 years, consistently. I think the main way I sort of got into it is, as I mentioned, doing it as an add-on to the close-up, and especially when you've got these smaller performances as well. So if you've got a group of 20 people and you've been booked to do a close-up performance for these 20 people, whether that's a house party, whatever it is, that's a stage performance right there. There's no point doing 2 hours walk around close-up magic. I just say to them, tell you what, instead of doing that, I'm just going to do an hour show for you guys, because once I start doing the close-up, everyone's going to be crowded around me anyway. It makes sense to just get there, do a stage performance. And that's pretty much how I started to rehearse the stage stuff in front of an audience, how I started to pick the material and sort of start to home it. And then it was adding the stage stuff onto the end of close-up performances as well. So that's pretty much, so it's just doing it, just finding opportunities to perform a stage performance.
Okay, fantastic. And I think I'm going to get lynched if I don't ask you this question by everybody who's watching this video, which has been a fantastic interview, by the way. Do you have any advice for magicians that are watching this from a marketing point of view? I know you don't do marketing courses, but you are very successful. If you could give people one piece of advice, because let's be honest, in the wonderful world of show business, there's two words, show and there's business. And most magicians, they spend all of their time working on the show and they spend no time at all working on their business, and they wonder why they're not getting the volume of gigs that they haven't got. And that's not you. You are so ridiculously busy, it's untrue. So is there one piece of advice that you could give somebody who's struggling, who wants more gigs, that they could implement right now and they could actually start maybe over time seeing a difference?
I think, for me, the turning point was just working hard. It was getting up every morning and working 9 till 5 and treating it like a job. Once you start treating it like a job, you find things to do. I always, if I never had anything to do during my set period of a day where I had to run a business, I'll just pick up the phone and call people. No matter who it was, I'd call up a company, call up a restaurant, call up someone and just kind of pitch my services. And you get a lot of benefit from that because you're starting to hone your sales pitch. And it's just work hard. Don't sit and wait for the phone to ring. I would never rely on things like Google ads or Facebook ads. I would much prefer direct marketing where I can. Not that I don't use Google ads and Facebook ads, but I always found direct marketing for me has been, certainly when I was starting out, it was much more beneficial because one, it's free. If you haven't got any money when you're starting out, it doesn't cost anything to pick up the phone and start to get in touch with people. And from that, you start to develop different aspects of the business. So if I was picking up the phone and I'd have a really shit day calling people, I'd say, right, well, how can I make this better? So I'd go away for the evening. I'd learn how to, whether that's through YouTube or just random courses or books, but I'll start to learn how to make a sales call. What should I be doing better? And you can start to home that, and then you practice it again the next day. Shit, what went wrong here? Okay, let's home that. Let's go away and work out how we can make it better. So I think it's just working hard. Don't sit and wait for the phone to ring. There's plenty to do, and don't be scared to fail. I've never been scared to fail. I would just go out and fucking hope it fails, and because every time it does, I can go away in the evening and make it better for the next day. We'll certainly try to anyway.
That's amazing. It's true. It's true. A friend of mine is a guy called Brad Burton. I don't know if you've heard of him.
I do. Yes, I know Brad Burton. Yeah.
And Brad always says, and it's so true, experience is what you win when you lose. Nice. Which is a great saying. It's experience is what you win when you lose. If you fail, that's fine. Just learn from it.
And that's right. And what was his book? Get Off Your Ass, I think it was.
Get Off Your Ass, yeah.
Get Off Your Ass 1 and 2, and they were two books I actually read pretty early on in the sort of the climb up the ladder of performing. And those books, I mean, to paraphrase it in one sentence, is just get off your ass and fucking start working. And that was the attitude I've always tried to keep. If I was offered a gig, and this comes back to the going out for, you know, less money. But if I was offered a gig, I'd go out and do it. I didn't care whether I was getting money. I just went out and done it. And then I would try and find opportunities to go out and do these gigs. So again, free charity events or whatever it is, but just doing something. I'd rather be out doing something, building my business, building my brand, than sat at home watching, you know, Netflix or, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And is it, we spoke off camera and you said you'd never been to Blackpool. Was that I mean, is that because you're on the south coast and literally it's the furthest possible distance you could possibly go? Like, I was in Alakazam last week filming a few projects, and then the next day Ryland was performing in Kent. Ryland was performing in Blackpool, and it was a 7-hour drive, which was, but it's even longer for you. Is that the reason, or was it because you were trying to build your business and it's like, well, I can take 5 days off and spend a fortune on magic holiday, or I can hustle and get a bunch of gigs that nobody else is around to get because they're all off at Blackpool, not here?
Yeah, I mean, it's both of those, really. It is a long way to drive, but also, you know, it's never really, I've never had that much of an inkling to go and do it particularly. I say that if I go, I'm sure I want to go back again. But I've always, you know, I've got my son here, and yeah, I just love hustling. I love performing. To me, I'd rather be out performing that weekend than going to Blackpool. But I say that I might be in Blackpool this year. Who knows? Next year.
Well, that would be great if you are. So what's the goal? I mean, you've said several times during this interview that you like hustling, and we've seen you reinvent yourself. You know, you started off with nightclubs, and then you reinvented yourself to weddings, then you reinvented yourself to corporates, then you reinvented yourself to a stage performance. It sounds like the sort of thing Madonna's doing. You're the Madonna of magic. Like, what are the plans moving forward? Because I know that you're very goal driven, you're very achievement orientated. What things are on your, I'm not going to say magical bucket list, but what things are on your business bucket list that you want to achieve that you haven't achieved, that you want to do over the coming weeks, months, and years?
So a lot of my time at the moment is spent building my agency. So I've got an agency of magicians on the South Coast that we hire out to different events, and that's taking up most of my time, sort of building that up, and that's been going for pretty much since COVID. So probably just about a year or so. We've been growing that brand, and so the goal is to build that brand and make sure that, you know, we're supplying all the magicians in the area. And on a personal magic goal, you know, I've got a few, I can't say, a few different things lined up that I'm really excited for. So there's a lot of TV work that I'm working behind the scenes on, and it's just trying to build into that market a little bit as well. So, you know, the short-term goals is to really develop the agency, to really help, or not to help, but to really start pushing the TV stuff that I'm working behind the scenes on a little bit. I think they're the main ones. They're the main short-term goals.
That's great. And on the subject of TV, you know, you're no stranger for putting yourself out there. You're more than happy to put yourself out there. You understand the importance of branding. You understand the importance of image. Have you ever thought, you know what, I'm going to have a crack at Britain's Got Talent?
I have, and it was actually the year that COVID happened. We had a really good team of myself, Mark Poole, a magician called Mike Brown, and another one called Colin Phillips. We had a really great team together. We had quite a good act. We were propositioned by Mandy to go on the show, and then COVID hit, and that was the year they cancelled it. So it kind of never got the ball rolling, and I just haven't had time to pick it up again and go forward with it. That's not to say it won't happen. I think it's still something that's kind of lingering in the background because the act still exists. It might be something that I try and do, but for anyone else who's thinking of doing it, I've had lots of conversations with people who do Britain's Got Talent and Ryland as well. But, you know, I think it's done absolute wonders for magic in general. You get some years where there's so many magicians on there that my bookings just go straight up the next week just because everyone suddenly wants a magician. So it's great.
I see the magicians, you know, on a complete side note on the subject of that. I see magicians every year when Britain's Got Talent comes on, and they openly, publicly on their Facebook pages go, "Oh, Britain's Got Talent is terrible. Oh, this magician shit. I could do better." And I'm like, why are you doing that? Somebody going on Britain's Got Talent is going to benefit the entire industry.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's great to watch, and I enjoy watching the magic. I think it's anyone who can go on and do something like that deserves every credit possible, because it's not an easy thing to do, to put yourself in front of a TV audience like that, and the criticism of the judges, and the criticisms, as you mentioned, of the magic community itself, which can be quite harsh at times. So yeah, I think it's great. Anyone who can go out and do that and make it work for them, excellent. And like I said, it's something I've toyed with the idea for a couple of years, but I've always thought, when I go in, you've got to go in 100%. And this year, I was offered to go on again, but I just didn't feel I'd have the time commitments to go in 100% this year, which is why I turned it down this year. But maybe one day in the future. But I think it's one of those things, if ever you do anything on such a big scale, you've got to go in 100%. You've got to really commit to making it work. And yeah.
Yeah, it's either all or nothing, right? It's 100%.
Yeah, that's it.
And as somebody who's experienced BGT, not as the person on it, but the person hanging around the person on it, it's a very stressful situation. It really is.
I can imagine it's a brutal process, really. And it's a lot, even the silly things. You've got a 5-minute act and you're hanging around all day, not really doing much other than being nervous and stressing and seeing all these other acts around you. And full credit to anyone who can go through that and make it work. I think it's great.
Oh, absolutely 100%. You know what, Stephen, this has been an amazing interview. It has been absolutely fantastic. If people want to reach out to you and chat to you, whether it be buying one of your books or it be just reaching out in general, or they live on the South Coast area, around the Southamptonish area, and they want to join your agency, where can people communicate with you? How can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, you can drop me an email, which is info@stephensimmonsmagic.co.uk. Mentioning the books as well, just to give them a little bit of a plug, because
because we've only really that's a very good point, actually. We've only really talked about the first one. How many have you done now?
So we've got the nightclub book. I've got one on hypnosis, which was how I developed my own sort of hypnotic style whilst I was working in nightclubs. So
tell me about this. I didn't even know you did hypnosis.
Oh, I love hypnosis. Yeah, hypnosis is great. It's one of the main things I do during my stand-up show. It's something I've done for a really long time. I've got a great passion for all things psychological, magic and such. So I absolutely love it. And it's a different style of hypnosis that I kind of developed working at nightclubs. And the way it's different is that when I was working at nightclubs, I just didn't give a shit if it went wrong. So I kind of found these little ways of making it work that people probably wouldn't have the balls to even try, because it's normally not done in a setting where people are smashed and aren't going to remember it the next day. So when I'm working at a nightclub, couldn't give a shit. I'll just try out random ways of seeing if it would work. And turns out there are lots of ways that kind of do work. And so I sort of wrote a book on some of these methods and some of the ideas, and combined it all together. And but now it's one of the best things I do at corporate events. People really love hypnosis. I think it's something that's interesting, it's mystifying, it's psychological tricks seem to play really well.
Are you doing it close up as well?
I'm doing it close up. I'm doing it on stage. Yeah, I mean, it's normally, if I'm doing it close up, it'll be one of the effects. I'm drawing a crowd, so it'll be something that I bring 20, 30 people together at a wedding reception or something like that. So quote unquote close up, but
the best way that I've ever seen hypnosis used is in combining it with a magic trick. So I don't know how well you know Mark Lavelle.
Mm-hmm. I was working with him a couple of days ago, actually.
Oh, well, okay. Yeah. Well, I've seen him many times do a coin bend. I think he uses David Penn's coin vex. He does the coin bend, but he gets them to squeeze their hand and they can't open up their hand.
Yeah.
And they just can't open it, and they can't open it no matter how much they try. They can't open up their hand. And then when he allows them to open up their hand and the coin's bent, it just heightens the experience tenfold. He's done the same trick as everyone else, but just by adding this little wrinkle and applying a little bit of hypnosis, it just makes the whole thing so much better.
Absolutely. And the other good thing about doing these kind of incorporating tricks into magic, like you mentioned there, it's a really great way to learn, because you've still got a coin bend at the end of it, even if you can't get them to open their hand. So it's a great way to learn. I used to do like a card transposition. So just a double lift, here's the 4 clubs, put it on the floor, put your foot on it, and then do a foot stick. Now, if it doesn't work, that 4 is now turned into their signed card. So you've still got an effect at the end of it. So you don't have as much pressure to get it right. You're not putting the pressure on yourself. You know, if it goes wrong, you're thinking, shit. And then you start to not be able to enjoy the process of hypnosis. So having a way out is a really great way to do that.
Wow. So this book covers how to do all of that, how to induct people, how to go through the oh, wow, that's great. I didn't even know that. Where can people get this? Can they contact you directly?
Yeah, I mean, you can get it from Penguin Magic. You can get it from Merchant of Magic. Most of the main magic shops it's on. If you wanted to get it through me direct, again, it's just a donation to the Southampton's Children's Hospital, and I will send you the PDF. So, yeah, that's all it is. If you get it,
what's it called?
So it says called Hacked Hypnosis.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, and then the other one is Choosing to Change, which is more of a business style book.
Well, I love business, so let's talk about this. What's this all about?
Yeah, so it's just, again, it's just my life journey, everything we kind of spoken about today. It's how I built the brand, and it's just a personal experience of my journey. All of the techniques that I use, from my sales scripts to my funnels to my workflows, everything that I use in my business, really, and all the different strategies and techniques that I use to get the business off the ground. And again, that's just a donation to Southampton's Children's Hospital, and I can send you a PDF. You can get it from Penguin. Unfortunately, nothing gets donated to the hospital through those guys. So, you know, if you can, just £10 to the Southampton's Children's Hospital. If anyone drops me a message, I'll just ping it to them.
That's great. That sounds awesome. I mean, I'm just, wow. I mean, the fact is that you detailed in there your whole outline of your business. It's literally giving it away for a donation. I mean, that kind of shows how much of a nice guy you are there, Stephen. Seriously, that's great. That's awesome.
Well, I think it's 170 pages, so it's a decent sized book, the business book, and it's literally covers everything. It basically it's done from my perspective of right from the start of my journey, from my drug taking, my alcohol abuse, my not having any motivation. So I talk about how I motivated myself, how I created routines, how I structured my day, and then the processes that I use. So the website building stuff, how to market, it's everything that I use in my business. I basically wrote down from a journey from start to where I was at the time I finished the book. And it's kind of, so I tried to write it in quite a fun way. So it's not so much just do this, do that. It's just, here's the journey that I made. And on that journey, here's the things that I did. And yeah, there's some sort of, some quite funny stories of things that happened when I was drunk, and various other things that happened when I was performing magic that went wrong. And I just tried to make it quite fun and hopefully quite a lively read as well. It's a little bit dated now, so I think it was probably 3 years that came out. So there's certainly some stuff. Maybe I'll do a 2.0 at some point. But yeah, there's certainly stuff that I would add on to that now. But I think, you know, for anyone who's sort of starting out, it'd be a really great book for a £10 donation to Southampton's Children's Hospital.
And it's such an inspirational story of where you started versus where you are now. I mean, it just shows, without being funny, because I don't mean this in any negative way at all, but anybody can do this. You know, it's just hard work, determination, and never giving up. The thing is, it's not, you know, one of my business coaches always says to me, you know, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. And that's the thing. It's not easy, but it's not easy because the hard work that's involved in doing it. But it's not like it's difficult in terms of, you know, having to learn a ton of stuff. It's just hard work, determination, never give up, taking risks, putting yourself out there, and you can do it, right?
Absolutely, and enjoying it. That's the biggest thing to it. You know, if you can enjoy what you're doing, yeah, it should be. And that was always the thing for me. I just really enjoy doing it. I enjoy the marketing. I enjoy picking up the phone and trying to sell a gig to someone. I enjoy doing the performance itself and doing all of it together. I love it. It's great fun. But it's not, it's like you said, it's not an easy thing to do. I think trying to be a full-time magician is probably one of the hardest things to do. And you're always restricted by the number of days in a year in terms of the performances. You can only do 365 days worth of performances a year. So you've got to start working on these branding and building up your value and making yourself or commanding these higher fees. And I just love that process of starting at the bottom run and just building up this ladder constantly, and just keep trying to get to the top.
For sure, 100%, absolutely. You know what? If people want to connect with you on Instagram, are you on Instagram or?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. So Stephen D. Simmons is my handle on Instagram and Facebook. info@stephensimmonsmagic.co.uk is the email. Or you can just sort of Google it and you'll find something. You can get me through the website or but if anyone, I'm always happy to help. If there's anyone who kind of, I might chat bullshit a lot of the time, but if anyone if there's anything, if I can give a little bit of help to anyone, then I'll be more than happy to do so.
That's amazing. That is absolutely fantastic. Stephen, like I said, this has been an incredible interview. I want to say thank you for finding the time. I know that you probably would have been spending the morning hustling this morning, so thank you for jumping on with me. I really appreciate it. I want everyone who's watching this to do me a favor and leave a comment down below. I'm sure Stephen will read it. Leave a comment. And honestly, this interview has been an absolute masterclass in how to become successful as a magician. Don't just get to the end of this interview and go make yourself a pop noodle. Instead, actually write down, while it's fresh in your head, everything that Stephen said. Go and buy his books and then implement. Go and actually do this, and you're going to see a massive difference. And thank you for giving all this away, Stephen. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Greg.
You're more than welcome. Guys, do me a favor, like I said, leave a comment down below, hit Stephen up and follow him on Instagram and all that fun stuff. And I will be back again tomorrow with another video, back again on Sunday with, I think, 4 videos on Sunday, including a review show special on Pro Caps by Lloyd Barnes and myself. So go check that out, and I'll see you again soon. My name's Craig from Magic TV.